Welcome back, you guys, to the Garden Room Podcast. If you're new here, my name is Mari Thrower, and these are just 5 to 10 minute devotional videos to hopefully encourage you throughout your week. And so I'm so excited you guys are here or watching, listening, whatever you are up to today. I hope it's been a good day, and if not, I hope it continues to get better for you guys. So as we get into today's topic, then I just really had to do some heart check and just think about, as I was reading this morning, how a lot of times that I feel like God didn't come through for me the way that I wanted him to or expected him to. Today I want to hop right into the word, and we will be in 1 Kings chapter 19 verses 9 through 13, and it says, "There he went into a cave and spent the night." And also a little context, this is Elijah, and he's a prophet of the Lord, and pretty much he's in a life-threatening situation for the things that God has been telling him to speak about. But continuing, it says, "And the word of the Lord came to him, 'What are you doing here, Elijah?' He replied, 'I have been very zealous for the Lord God Almighty. The Israelites have rejected your covenant, torn down your altars, and put your prophets to death with the sword, and I am the only one left. And now they are trying to kill me too.' The Lord said, 'Go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by.' Then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face and went out and stood at the mouth of the cave. Then a voice said to him, 'What are you doing here, Elijah?'" And so you guys, as I was thinking about that passage this morning and just reading through it and seeing how the Lord told Elijah to meet him on the mountain and told him, "I'm going to pass by," and how all these different things started happening between the wind and the earthquake and a fire, and how many of these big, just kind of honestly monumental type of things where you're witnessing one thing after the next thing after the next thing, but God was not in those things, yet he met him in the stillness and the quiet and just a small whisper. So I just started to think about how many times that I think God would have shown up in one way, but he showed up in a completely different way than what I ever thought he would or would have expected. And something I also had to think about was when I asked God to reveal himself to me or speak to me or show me what to do or even just express my concern for certain situations, then I also have to say, am I still enough and quiet enough to hear his response? Am I able to actually find that quiet moment to just allow God to move however he wants to move, however he sees best? And I know a lot of times God speaks through a lot of big things that we can see and are tangible and all these different things, or through people with huge platforms who have a big influence, but God can speak to you in a huge conference, or he also can speak to you in the quietness and the stillness of your home on your couch. And it's recognizing that God is a lion and a lamb. And I think a lot of times we want him to come through as a lion and to attack all of our problems and come through in a huge, significant way. But it's also recognizing that God may come through in a gentle and comforting and relatable way. And you may not want that, you may not understand that, or you may not be willing to wait for that. And Elijah was sitting there on the mountaintop waiting, and I couldn't help but think, what if he just waited and said, well, God wasn't in the fire, God wasn't in the wind, he wasn't in the earthquake, so let me just go back to where I was going. I didn't see him. I must have missed him, or he must not be here. And I think that's what a lot of us are thinking. We're like, I asked God to come through. I wanted him to come through in these ways. I didn't see him. I can't hear him. What is going on, God? But are we waiting long enough? Are we quiet for long enough to hear his whisper? Because that is one thing about God, is he's never going to leave us. He's never going to forsake us. His word promises that to us. But are we willing to be patient enough and also to be available enough to however he wants to speak to us in these moments? And so as I think about the life of Elijah and then just the rest of that passage of the chapter, then he did wait long enough and he did hear God's voice, and God did tell him what to do and what his next moves are and his next directions, because he was genuinely in a fearful spot. He genuinely was in a tough place in his life where his life was being threatened. He was like, God, they're going to kill me. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I think some of us are in some tough predicaments where it's either you're going through heartbreak, you're experiencing loss, you're experiencing just change, you're experiencing all these different challenges that you're like, God, I didn't know this was coming. And on top of that, I'm following you. I'm trying to do what you called me to do. I'm trying to do what you've said. And it's the reminder that God is not going to leave us. Also the reminder that he didn't promise us this perfect life, but also recognizing that God is going to give you those next steps. It may not be just how you want it to be or how you thought it would be, but don't write God off. Don't walk back down the mountain disappointed saying God didn't meet me. God didn't come through the way I wanted him to. He may have not come through how you wanted, but he still will. And when we think about his will, when we think about the will of the Father, he always wants what is best for you. And we may not always be able to understand that or see that, but he does. And so I want to encourage you guys to just stay long enough, stay maybe quiet enough to hear God's voice, to hear those whispers, to hear him move, to hear him work and know that he is working. And sometimes when we're so surrounded by so much noise and the constant busyness and all the different things, and some of it can be good stuff, but you just don't want to miss God. If he says he's going to pass by, if he says he's going to come through, then know that he will. And so don't limit God and just put him in one box and say, well, if he didn't come through this way, then he's not coming through at all. Know that God can work in so many different ways, you guys, and he is wanting to work it out on your best behalf. And so with that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Know that you're not walking in this alone. Know that the Lord sees you. Know that I'm praying for you guys. And until the next time, keep growing with God, and I will see you guys soon.